Good afternoon and welcome to the Sunset Safari. Look what we have managed to find you to start the show off. It's always very nice when you can start a drive off with some cats of some sorts or any other animals doing something interesting. But the lions seem to be doing what they do best this afternoon in the sun, which is kind of normal, and that's of course resting. Good afternoon again, everybody. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is Adrian. And I don't know why I have to say it like I'm an announcer. It just sounds much better. Remember, for those of you who haven't joined us on a live safari before, you can chat to us. You've of course met me. You'll meet Ralph a little bit later, and you'll also meet James and Steve too. So remember to hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or you can also talk to us via the YouTube chat. Now, I'm quite excited about these lions that we have laying in the grass. You can't see all of them right now. That's the only lion that's being obliging. However, I think we have the little sausage tree pride here, who is a pride of lions that I have not seen for a very, very long time. Months. Maybe a month, actually. Could be even a little bit longer. Now, the reason why I think it is the sausage tree pride of lions, because it doesn't look like there are very many here, even though the grass could be concealing a pride of 50. I have only seen 2 lionesses, and then I did see a sub-adult at one point put its head up too. So it could be quite interesting. And we can't really confirm anything just yet, though. We have to wait till they get up and completely reveal themselves. But that doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. Ralph did tell me on his way towards Purungut Bridge, so yes, get excited. Could be cheetah on the cards and many other animals too that are in the Masai Mara National Reserve, because that's where Ralph is driving around. And he said on his way through here a couple of hours ago, these lions are actually in a tree. He didn't tell me how many lions are in a tree, but perhaps we'll ask him in a little bit and find out if he managed to count them on his way past. Maybe he stopped, maybe he just dashed past them, because he did have quite a journey to go, and he still has quite a journey to go to get towards the Hammakorp region, which is hopefully where the Fast Five will be. But I don't know what Ralph's plans are. He's got so many different animals to choose from. It's going to be hard just to choose one. So hopefully over the next few days he's going to be able to put some of your favorite characters on screen for you during the drive. So make sure that you tune into all of them over the next few days. That's going to be the most important thing, because he's across there for 3 nights. Wonderful. It seems as though Ralph has made it through the gate safely into the Masai Mara National Reserve. So without further ado, here's Ralph.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome aboard once more for the Sunset Safari. We're coming to you all the way from Kenya, 1 degree south of the equator, and we have come across onto the eastern side of the Mara River. So we are in the Greater Mara Reserve, and my name is Ralph Kirsten. On the camera we've got Craig. So thanks for joining us, and please join us on the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter and also on the YouTube live chat. Now, sorry that I'm just driving, but we are trying to make our way towards where there's some potential sightings of some cheetah, and so that's the reason why we are just continuing along a little bit, because I have heard through the bush telegraph that there's some spotted cats around, and so we're hoping to catch up with them. But yes, please get involved with your questions and your comments. Please send them to us, because this is the largest game drive in the world. And remember, on this side there's a lot less of the thick grass that we get on the other side in the Mara Triangle, because this has been a lot more grazed, and so it's a lot easier for us to find the cats. And it seems there's a lot larger concentration of cheetah, especially here. I know this morning that Brent caught up with some cheetah near to the Tanzanian border, which was very exciting. I haven't seen any cheetah in the Mara Triangle, so that was very interesting. Now, we've got some elephants here that we're going to maybe just stop and have a look at, because there's a nice little baby over there. So I'm just going to position us where we've got a nice spot to have a look at them, and there's a little road there. So let's have a look. looks like they were just enjoying a little bit of the shade under the tree, or maybe a bit of a back scratch. So let's just come in slowly and see how this little baby is doing with mommy over there. Lovely view of them. I'll just go a tiny bit more forward. I know that it's a little bit of their bottoms, but I'm sure at some stage they're going to turn and give us a nice view. It's also a Balanites tree, and that's what we predominantly get on the other side of the river as well, on the Mara Triangle. But a very serene little scene here with mommy and her calf. I hope that little one's out of the way. Oh, yeah, just missed him. Good job, mommy. Good job, baby, for being out of the way of the dropping dung. Remember, baby elephant can feed on mommy's dung, because they do need to get a little bit of that fungus that she's got in her belly. So it's not unusual for baby to be playing around in mom's dung and maybe even eating a little bit of it. As there we might see it's curling up its trunk. Maybe it's not the best tasting thing in the world, but they do dig and rummage through it quite a lot, as they are interested in everything around them. Mommy's dung is one of those new things to little calves. It's a bit blustery at the moment, but it's quite warm, so not very cold at all. But at least we're not getting too sunburnt, I hope. I have slapped on my sunscreen. But these elephants, you can see not too much ear flapping. There's a lovely breeze, so it's keeping them nice and cool. And this youngster can't be older than a year, so he's only probably about, I would say, between 6 and 8 months old. Now, Tree Bear, you're commenting, thanks for your comment, and saying that if we start the drive with some elephants, and especially babies, well then your drive's pretty much complete. Well, that's great. I'm glad that we could start off like that. We were driving a little bit and just trying to cover some ground so that we could get across, but we'll never pass up the opportunity of spending a little bit of time with these pachyderms and their lovely way of being, very calm. It's lovely to be with a mommy and her calf, especially. Always interesting to watch that little trunk and how they're trying to get it working for them. Very often not going quite to plan. And so they do use their feet as well. Now, Scarlett, thanks for your question once more. Scarlett, I hope you heard my answer to your question yesterday about the male nipples, but your question now is saying, what age do the males move away from the herd? It's normally once they reach their teens, so it's normally from about 15, 16 years of age. And somebody else also commented recently that that puts them quite similar to humans. And indeed, we do have quite a lot of similar characteristics with elephants. Their aging is quite similar to ours. And I think without modern technology and science, I think we would generally be exactly the same, if not a shorter life expectancy than elephants, because they can live up to 60 years of age, slightly more sometimes. But the youngsters, and especially the males, leaving the herd at around 16 to 18 years of age, it's also very similar to humans, and their eyesight is very similar as well. Now, in other differences, obviously, that they have more than double the gestation period, or pretty much double. It's around there. But also their mammary glands being just behind the front legs, that also makes them a little bit more like humans. But I wouldn't say that those teeth look anything like ours, although I have seen some pretty weird teeth, but nothing look in any way like an elephant's tusks. Well, my teeth maybe look a little bit weird sometimes too, but those are really modified teeth, and so we share a couple of characteristics, but in general I'd say that we're not really that much alike, but quite intelligent, and I'd say that a lot of elephants are probably surpassing humans in that I think we're over-intelligent and we sort of miss our natural being a little bit more than they do. They're more in touch with their wild side and more in tune with nature. And as natural things go, you can't get more natural than a mommy and her calf, and especially the way that she nurtures it. And that was one of the other topics that we spoke about, the mammals that nurture their young, and pretty much came to the conclusion that we thought elephants one of the most nurturing of all the mammals. It's very lovely to show an excellent example right there as mommy walks off with her little calf. So you can see the blustery, sort of hazy view that we have, but they're now going to walk off into the distance, and we're going to continue along our road in the search for the spotted cats. And speaking of cats, while we're doing that, let's head you on over to Taylor.
And our cats are fast asleep, like most of you were doing a few hours ago, especially if you're in the States. I think you'd just be waking up right now. Or, well, I suppose it depends on whereabouts you are in the world. Perhaps it was just a cat nap, in between work. One of these things. But she's fast asleep at the moment. Now, Timothy, great question from you. You're wondering about, I suppose you could call it pride wars, and what would happen if two prides were to meet up with one another. Has this ever happened? Oh, most certainly. Brent yesterday was naming, I don't know how many prides he managed to get through, but he said there's at least 50 odd prides, or what he reckons, out here in the Mara. So, you can imagine conflict, especially at this time of the year where it's a bit drier, there's not big herds of wildebeest, zebra around, they're all competing for food. Now, essentially, a pride of lions would have a home range, and they'd have a core territory in the middle. Now, these lionesses are very interesting, and I've only learned this recently. I didn't realize that lioness would scent mark, but I suppose, because there are so many prides here, it's important that they do leave don't just vocally declare that they have a territory, because lionesses can roar as well, of course, but they don't declare like the males do, but that they also leave a scent behind, which makes perfect sense. This way, hopefully that would mean that they would have less actual conflict and contact with one another, and a lion may move off. But they will fight. They will fight one another. The lionesses can be particularly aggressive too. So we've all been chatting about it, and we're waiting to see if anything happens between the marsh breakaways, which is the 3 lioness with the now 7 cubs. That can also be 5 lioness with the other 2 that hang around in the marsh. My favorite girls, the ones we saw this morning on the sunrise safari, and also the Angama pride, which is a relatively large pride of lions. We know it's 4 lioness and 13 cubs. Now, the triangle boys, they don't really mind because they see both of those prides. Excuse me, my goodness, the sneezes are coming on heavy today. Apologies for that. Now you know it's live in case you thought we were talking nonsense and it was all recorded. It's happening right now. I sneezed at exactly 15:44 Eastern African time. Don't know why I thought I'd have to need to give you a timestamp. I've never seen a conflict, however, between 2 different prides of lions, and it's something that I would really like to see because I think it would be a valuable learning experience. Goodness gracious, I don't know if it's the allergies or the tickle in my throat is perhaps a cold coming along with all this crazy weather we've been experiencing at the moment. Sorry, everyone. Maybe a few more sneezes where that came from. So it's something that I would definitely like to see. It would be very interesting to see if these 2 prides eventually meet up and what happens. Remember, the Angama cubs are also a little bit older. They've got those sub-adults, though I don't think they would fight. I think all the cubs would scatter and try and get away. So it wouldn't be a nice thing. I wouldn't imagine. But there aren't too many prides in terms of females, I think, in this stretch. They all have little pockets and they're all quite small. So I definitely think that the Angama pride is going to have to push their territory slightly, and that might shift where the sausage tree pride is, and so forth. The problem, I think, would lie in with the paradise pride. If it's the Magoros that have to push further towards the paradise pride, then we might have a bit of trouble. We know how massive the paradise pride is. There's so many lines on either side of the river, and with different males too. Not the same coalition as the Olololo, aka the Marsh Breakaways, and the Angama pride have. Remember, that's the Triangle Boys or the Chitwa Temba males. It's the Musketeers that control the territory around the Mara River near Hippo Pools and towards Serena. So it'll be quite cool to see what happens here. But I think with there being so many lions around, we can expect a lot of shifting to happen over the next couple of years, as it always does. I don't know if we'll stay here for the entire time. I think we could use our time a bit more valuably? I don't know what I'm trying to say today, but I'd like to go down to the Mara River essentially and have a look for some hippos, maybe some crocodiles. I'd like to spend some time with hippos today though. Elephants, and maybe a quick look around for the Paradise Pride and the Musketeers. We might as well, seeing as though we've been talking about them and we'll be in the core of their territory. But not Ryan, I've got all sorts of names on my head today. Ralph is copying me in terms of finding cats. He's finding more animals than me today, and he is approaching a lion.
Yeah, thanks Taylor, and thanks for getting my name right eventually. But look what we've got just up front here. It's a little bit bumpy, so Craig's not going to zoom in just yet, but we've spotted a lovely tawny belly and a flicking tail from the road. So we thought it would be rude not to pop in and see who this might be and what is happening. It looks like we've only spotted one lion for now, but looks like it might be a young male, but let's get a little bit closer and have a look. Sitting right out in the open, obviously not too perturbed about being in the sun, and that's what I say, it is quite cool actually. Oh, look at that. Lovely young male. I don't want to disturb him too much, but that's a lovely view of this male here on a little bit of a termite mound, and he just lifted his paw for us. That was very nice of him. You can see there he's probably around 18 months of age, with that very little bit of mane that's starting to come through. They very often look like Elvis with their sideburns, and then a little bit of a mohawk as well. So they look quite fugly when they're in this sort of age. And he could quite well be already kicked out of the pride or chased away by the pride male. And so he might be a nomad. But he does look in decent nick, so I'm not too worried about him. His coat looks very good, so either that or he is sitting not far from the rest of the pride. Maybe they're sitting in the shade and he thinks he's just going to show off and go and lay on the top of a termite mound. They can still stay with the pride sometimes, quite long, but it all depends on the tolerance of the pride male. He looks quite content, however, sleeping in the breeze, nice and cool for him. Well, we won't spend too much time with a sleeping kitty. Now, Francis, I think the question was that if lions could bring down rhinos. Well, Francis, I think it is quite unusual for lions to attack rhino because it's a rather difficult prey for them to bring down. And if you've ever witnessed live what a rhino is like when he's running and moving about, he's pretty much like a live tank. And so for lions to attack a rhino, it's either a sick one or one in a bit of distress or a youngster, but they do need to then watch out for mommy. So rhino is not a particular prey of lions. However, I have just recently seen a little clip of a black rhino that was stuck in a waterhole somewhere in Namibia, and these lions, as opportunistic as they are, 3 males came down as they saw this female who was actually pregnant as well, and she was stuck in the waterhole, and these 3 males obviously tried to take their chance while she couldn't get out of the waterhole and try and take her out. But eventually she got out, and as she did, she chased the 3 of them away like naughty little boys. So it's not a particular prey of lions, and I wouldn't say that it's regular either. I've never seen a lion take on a rhino. Now, Scarlett, you're wondering if he'd be able to hunt at his age, at this young age. Absolutely, Scarlett. And some of them learn very quickly, and they can then go off on their own, and they start small. You know, they can take some spring hare and warthogs, and slowly they build themselves up. But it all depends on their specific character and how hard they've had it in their life. You know, sometimes if it's harder, it's easier eventually. So if he had it very easy when he was a cub, sometimes it does make it difficult for them later in life. But once they get to know how to hunt, they can be fantastic hunters, and this is the time when they really can bring the best out in them, because I've seen a little bit older than this, and 3 males like this who had been kicked out of their pride, but taking on very big prey like buffalo and giraffe and succeeding, and eventually coming through as a fantastic coalition and taking on a pride of their own. So the potential is there, and we always hope that he can make it up and through the ranks and find himself taking down big prey and challenging for a big pride of his own. But for the time being, we've got a very sleepy cat. Now, Philip, you're wondering what would be the last resort for a lion's meal, or what they would take on as a last resort. Well, probably the worst thing that I've ever seen lions eat was, and I don't know if the animal was sick, but I saw them eating an aardvark, and I don't know if the aardvark was sick or there was something wrong, because they ate this aardvark, and they immediately, all 5 of them, started to regurgitate what they had eaten and then continue to regurgitate. So it did seem a little bit of a last resort to eat an aardvark, and maybe there was something very distasteful about it, or maybe an organ or something that it really made them all sick. But that was probably, and it really smelt bad as well. So I've never actually seen any predators kill an aardvark except for those lions, and so my thoughts are that maybe aardvark is not such a great thing for them to eat. But I've seen young males like this eating tortoises and as I say, spring hares. Spring hares a little bit like a mixture between a hare and a kangaroo, but very small, and they are rodents, and they hop along on their back legs. But another one that they also start to hunt, and is very difficult, and they need to be extremely careful, is porcupines. If they get it right and they flip the porcupine upside down and they can get to its soft belly, then it's a brilliant tactic and a good way to kill them, and they're very good eating as well, and apparently very good tasting. They are the largest rodent, so the thought of eating a porcupine is not that great, but I do know quite a few people that have eaten them, and they say that the meat is excellent. But for a lion or a leopard to take on a porcupine, it's an extreme risk, because if they get those porcupine quills in their face, those quills that they have, they've actually got little barbs on them. So if that quill gets stuck in their face and they can't get it out, it can literally start to grow inwards. So they really need to pull hard to get it out. And obviously if it's around the face and it's stopping them from eating, they could actually end up dying of starvation, which I've seen as well. So it's quite nasty to take on porcupine, and not a good idea, but some of them land up specializing in them. Right, folks, I think we're going to leave this youngster in his little bed, and we're going to move on and look for cheetah. But in the meantime, let's send you on over to Taylor, who I believe is also on the move.
Oh, you won't believe what I've just spotted. 2 tiny little baboons amongst the troop. But they're a bit shy. Let's see if they come out again. They were playing so nicely. So those are the older ones. Whip, little leap across a lugger. They do it much better than I did. The last time I saw that, I saw mud. But I suppose I should be taking notes. I could learn a thing or two. But where are they? Oh, there's one tiny little one just sitting at the back, that one that was just feeding. There we go. You're on it. Are you? That's one of the little ones, I think. I think there could be something even closer. I'm just trying to see if those are the really, really small ones. No, here they are. Sorry, Adrian. There one runs. Looks still wobbly on its legs. Just running past that troop. There we go. Zoom straight in there. You'll get it now. There we go. Run! Off we go. That's a tiny little baboon. You can see it's much darker than the rest. It is so small, and I don't think it's quite worked out how to use its legs yet. I don't think it's very old. Probably a couple of weeks old now. They grow quite quickly. I mean, well, they have to hold on right from the get-go, which is pretty impressive that they've already got those muscles that can grip that tight. Now, that's not Mom. That's one of the big males. Well, it looked like it anyway. And they're actually very caring. The male, all the baboons, out of the Chitwa, out of the olive, which is the one that we're looking at over now, and they're fairly tolerant. Again, it goes down to individual. So some might prefer the youngsters than others, and others won't tolerate them at all. And it's always funny to see how the littlest baboons, the littlest lions, any of the more social animals, the youngsters always try and run up to the biggest one. I suppose it's a bit of inspiration as to potentially what you could grow into, especially if you are a young male baboon. There's quite a few of them, though, you'll see, and they were playing. The other one is approaching the son, so I'm saying, no, wait for me, Mum. And you can see how Mum's giving them a little bit of freedom now. Initially, she'd want to keep them right by their side, but as they start to work out their little legs, that other one is coming through now. I think they might play. There we go. They will wander off from Mum slowly now. Scarlett, you're wondering how sharp are a baboon's nails? I haven't got a clue. I've never touched a baboon before. I've never seen one close enough. I'm hoping to keep it that way too. I would imagine that they're not too sharp. I don't think that they'd be as sharp as a lion or a leopard's claws, but if they were to scratch you, I think it would hurt and they could draw blood. They do use their nails, their hands. They dig with them, so digging in the coarse ground that could help keep them filed down. I'm sure they're similar-ish to ours. I mean, let's see. It's a pity none of them are sitting out in the open that we could have a closer look. It would be quite nice to examine, but we'll get that next time. We'll put that on the card, so we'll keep that out. Now another question from Scarlett. Thank you very much. If you would like to ask any questions, remember hashtag Safari Live or chat to us on the YouTube chat. So Scarlett, the second question is, and would lions ever hunt baboons? Most certainly. That young male lion that you were looking at with Ralph, yep. he could quite easily hunt a baboon. However, it's not very common. They are susceptible to being predated on by lions. You can imagine a lion can stalk them in this long grass, except baboons are really vigilant creatures, and because they live in family groups, because they live in troops, there are so many eyes and ears that would spot them. But again, they're not sitting in the greatest spot. They're near the Mara River, so there's a dense tree line, there's lots of small shrubs popping up, and of course the grass is quite long. So the lions would have a good chance. Not much meat on a baboon, however, maybe just enough to fill the belly of a young male lion. However, who does like to feed on baboons is the leopards. Leopards are specialists. Lions can climb trees, of course, however, coming down is not as easy, and they're not nimble. They can't leap from branch to branch like a leopard can. Remember, they've been practicing that since they were very, very young, climbing up trees, falling down trees, but building the essential muscles that would allow them to balance a little bit easier. That little one is so funny just off to the left. It's just moving in the grass and pouncing from grass to grass. I think a little bit further to the left, a little bit more. Almost there. We're looking at the same ones, quite far, almost 7 o'clock. There we go, now you got it. There, that's the little one I'm talking about. And leopards often will catch him. I'll never forget hearing all the baboons screaming in the middle of the night down on the Msutlu River in the Sabi Sand, the southwestern corner of the Sabi Sand, and you just knew that there was a leopard chasing them around. And you can tell the difference between a domestic dispute and then, of course, well, screams of being terrified. Now, Zephyr, you're wondering if now the tables have turned. Have baboons ever killed lion cubs? I've never seen baboons killing lion cubs before, but I'm pretty sure it happens. However, I have been in a sighting where I'm pretty sure as I arrived, the baboons killed a leopard cub. Mvula's mother, actually, Little Bush, aka the outcrop female, she had 2 cubs. Her cub that she has now should be about 1.5 years old. Probably a bit more than that, in fact, maybe almost 2 years old now. It was such a long time ago. Anyways, there were 2 of them. They were very, very young, and I'll never forget the one morning I arrived in the sighting, and I heard the baboons going crazy, and then I heard a leopard soaring, and then the baboons were going crazy again, and there was growling, and eventually Little Bush came out of the thicket, angry, snarling, charging the vehicle, soaring every couple of minutes, as if she was distressed. She looked very distressed. Anyway, we didn't see her for the next few days, for about 2 or 3 days, and eventually she came out and she only had 1 cub. So I wonder if there wasn't a squabble amongst her and the baboons actually got 1 cub. There also was a story reported, I think it may have been in Botswana, where a troop of baboons ripped to pieces a fully grown leopard. So not only will they kill young cubs when they can, of course it's a future threat, so lion cubs most certainly, they'll also tear apart adults, especially female leopards. And remember that sighting that Janie had with Tundi when she still had 2 cubs? She still had Tumba and the other one, I don't know if they were named back then. It was a very, very close call where Tundi tried to almost lure the baboons away and the cubs made an escape and dashed under some bushes. So they are frightened of them, and I can't tell you how many times I've seen troops of baboons chasing after leopards through riverbeds trying to get them away. But the tables do turn. Like I just said, it happens both ways. Leopards kill baboons, baboons kill leopards, big and small. And Mashabeni, who's the resident male down in the Sabi Sand, he often would eat baboons. And it's the most terrifying thing, coming across a leopard with a baboon in the tree and feasting upon them. It's I don't know how to even describe it. I'm at a loss of words. This is something I didn't enjoy seeing. That's for sure. They're moving a bit further away now. Trudy, you're wondering if the baboons have ever jumped in the Jeep before. No, not since I've been on safari while I've been in the car, but I remember as a young child going on safari to the Kruger National Park, and it was classic holiday destination. That's what we used to do in December. We'd go up for 2 to 3 weeks, and the baboons there are pests, but they're known to be pests. And I reckon it must have been an area that we'd passed through where the baboons were familiar with humans and cars and everything. So anyways, we had our windows up and we drove in, and there were all cars sitting around watching, so we couldn't go, so we switched off the engine. We started watching the baboons. Now, for those of you who don't know my dad, he doesn't like to sit and watch antelope. He doesn't like, oh no, actually I lie, he doesn't mind antelope, but he doesn't like sitting and watching baboons or birds. He wants to see all the big game. He's such a big five chaser. It teases him about it all the time. And then also only show him birds when he comes on a safari with me. And they actually pulled the windscreen wipers off the car. These baboons started jumping on the vehicle. We couldn't do anything. They were jumping on all the cars. And then they pulled my dad's aerial off his car. They pulled the windscreen wipers off. I'll never forget. I thought it was hilarious. My dad was not impressed, of course, by this. So they can be terrorists, but it's typically in an area where they've learned how easy it is to get food from people, and then they tend to be vandals and quite destructive as well. So you got to be careful of these creatures. And Steph was actually telling me an interesting story yesterday. He went for a run, which most of us do. We go out on a run, and he said an interesting encounter with the males of a troop of baboons that sort of live near the dam where Djuma the hippo lives, and also where we get our water from, in that little valley, not too far from camp. And they come up, they haven't been in camp, but they watch from a distance, thankfully. And he says they give him a bit of a rev, which is quite interesting. So they can be very aggressive. And I think I've told you stories of the vervet monkey that almost attacked my brother for a lunchbox. And I grew up on a stud farm and always, outdoors, not in the city. And we'd often encounter baboons and vervet monkeys. And I just remember my mother shouting at my brother, "Drop that lunchbox! Drop that lunchbox!" Because he didn't want to let it go. But this vervet monkey, and you've all seen them, they're also reluctant to give up and showing teeth. Anyways, eventually my brother dropped the lunchbox. I've got many stories I can tell you about baboons and vervet monkeys. Another really fun one is they used to terrorize our dogs, which was not annoying to me. It provided much entertainment for the rest of the family, to the point where my Jack Russell learned how to jump up and climb trees. Obviously, with a little bit of help from the tree, it obviously bending at different angles. So she used to try and chase them as far up the trees as she could. They would sit and throw rocks at the bigger dogs. We had Anatolian shepherds, we had a Alaskan Malamute cross timber wolf, and an Irish wolfhound, and a German shepherd. We had lots of dogs growing up, and they would throw rocks at my dogs. They were so clever, because then the dogs would chase after the rocks. And then they could run down and take all the food. They were so naughty, and try and get into the bins, which the dogs would never normally let them get into. So it was really quite funny growing up, seeing all of this. And I'll tell you another story. One day, when I was very young and silly, the same property that we were living on with all the dogs and the same vervet monkeys and baboons that would throw rocks at the dogs to try and get their food, they were annoying me at like 5 o'clock in the morning, running across the roof. So I got out, and then they were sitting in the tree, and they were so cheeky. And so I picked up a rock, hoping to scare them. Anyways, I can't help it that my aim is so good. And it was a tiny little rock. Anyway, I threw it, and it was a vervet monkey this time. And it hit the vervet monkey on the arm. Not hard, because I was so far away. But this vervet monkey that was sitting in the tree turned and looked at the vervet monkey sitting next to it, and then chased it down the tree. It's like it thought its friend did it. Meantime, it was me. I don't throw rocks at animals anymore, though. This was many, 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 many years ago. I, of course, know better. Like I said, it was just a tiny little rock. I just wanted to try and chase them away. I never want to actually hurt them. And so, yeah, so the baboons down there were very, very naughty. And it was also payback for throwing rocks at the dogs. So, yeah, I've had some funny, funny stories. I actually miss seeing the vervet monkeys. Maybe we get to find some. We see them around Olasheki, actually, where Ralph is heading across the river. We see them every now and then here too. We also, of course, see the Sykes monkey out and about. Lovely baboon sighting though, but they're heading towards the thickets now. So we shall carry on towards the Mara River, copy the baboons, because that's what they are doing, probably to feed on the Diospirus fruit that's dropping at the moment. Ralph has left his line and he is on the way to search for the Fast Five.
Yes, thank you, Taylor. And folks, you're joining us now on the search for especially cheetah, but obviously anything else that is exciting in the area. Now, very often we can spot termite mounds and rocks and all sorts of things that from a distance look like cats. So very often you can think there's a cat and it turns out to be a rock, but if you think, oh, there's a rock and it might have turned out to be a cat, sometimes it's just worth going to have a look. Now, Craig and I were debating. We spotted something white off in the distance here, and we weren't quite sure if it was a rock or a cat, but we do have to go in a little bit closer and have a look. Now, we're working all these luggers. That's generally where we do find these cats, and so we're in prime territory, but it's wonderful to drive in this area now. A lot less grass, or the grass is a lot shorter, so a lot easier for us to navigate and also to spot the animals from quite a distance. But we're just going to go and make sure that we weren't looking at a cat and not a rock. Now, Taylor was telling you stories about her dogs and vervet monkeys. I want to tell you just a short story about my basset hound, and I was managing a private game reserve in the Eastern Cape, and we had a little enclosure around our humble abode to keep the big animals out, and so we had our dogs within this enclosure, and we had all the big five moving around quite regularly. And one day when we were busy making a barbecue out the front, I heard a big commotion out the back, and it sounded like an elephant charging and trumpeting, and I ran out, and there was an elephant that had charged right up to the fence to my dog, who proceeded to just sit down. And so he did the best thing that anybody could do, and he was standing his ground. Now, folks, you see these white rocks that we spotted off from a very large distance. Those are our lion-looking rocks, or maybe cheetah, I don't know. From a distance, it could have been any of those cats, but at least we've identified them as quartzite rocks. Well done, Craig. Those were magnificent rocks, I think. But I also thought that it was cats, so we both made that mistake, but worth a look. Worth a look. And so yes, my basset hound, he stands down elephants, and he also, at the same place, we trained our dogs to keep the monkeys away from the house. So whenever we heard the monkeys jumping on the roof or whatever, we would go, where's the monkeys, where's the monkeys, where's the monkeys? And that would drive the dogs mad to go and chase off the monkeys. Now, one day we did that, and my basset hound actually chased one of the monkeys, and he was on the ground, and he actually got to the monkey before he was able to jump in the bush, and he grabbed onto his tail. But my basset hound is not a killer dog. I mean, I don't know if you get any killer basset hounds. But anyway, he got the tail of this little vervet monkey, and the vervet monkey let out an almighty squeal. And the basset hound, I think, got more of a fright than the monkey. But anyway, the monkey jumped up into the bush, and then the basset hound sat at the bottom of the bush, howling at him for the next half an hour until I came and got him away from the vervet monkey. But I think the monkey would have done a bit more damage to my dog than the other way around, because wild animals know how to look after themselves, and mine was a very well-kept basset hound, and but he is a character, I must say. And so we're still on the search for these secretive cats, and we're going to now pop over into the next valley and go through that lugger. So it wasn't all not worth anything going and looking at that stone. At least we know there's no cats there for the time being. But it's great to be back on this side in the Greater Mara Reserve. I really enjoy it here, and it's nice to be in the Mara Triangle too, my favorite place being that of the hyena den. So as soon as we finished here in a few days' time, I think we'll be heading straight back to go and see what they've been up to in the interim. I'm sure they would have swallowed another few warthogs, but maybe they would have got up to something else sinister. And always looking in the shade underneath any relevant little bushes and trees. Now, Tom, you're wondering how far away from camp we are. Well, it's taken us about 2 hours drive to get here, but direct line of sight, I would have to say we're probably about 30 kilometers, so not an extreme distance. I would say it's about that, maybe a little bit more, but that's obviously direct line of sight, not all the twists and turns, and so eventually we'll probably be about 50 kilometers away from camp, direct line. When we end up at Talek, that's where we'll be staying this evening and for the next couple of nights, and then we move on to Salas, and then we'll look around in those different parts as well, as we've got a couple of warthogs here running in front of us. I think we'll stop and have a look at them. Can't always just look at the predators, sometimes need to look at the prey species too. That's what always amazes me here in the Mara, how skittish the warthogs are, because I don't believe that any of them are getting hunted, and so maybe it's just their way of being here in the Mara. But a lovely little family group, a male and a female, and 1, 2, 3, 4 little piglets. Remember, you can tell male and female apart by the number of warts on their face. Females have got 1 pair, 1 on either side, and the males have got 2 pairs. So 1 just below his eye, and then the other pair further down near to his tusks. Now that's the one that's just running off there with his little flag raised, and as he raises his flag, and so everybody else follows. A lovely sight that, all of the warthogs in a line running off. They follow me tail flags. Lovely. Yeah, it's not all about the cats, folks. We do like to look at the little things too. I love watching warthogs. They're almost as interesting as baboons and hyenas, especially once they've had a lovely mud bath and then they're scratching their bottom on a smooth rock and wallowing in the mud. And they are quite comical. And they are quite silly, really. They do almost not realize the risk of walking near to predators, or maybe they're just oblivious, because I very often see warthogs just meandering along, and at the last minute the predator breaks out and catches one of them. But they do have very big litters, and so it does come down to almost, they do that because most of them get eaten. And very often you see a male and a female with maybe 1 little piglet left, and sometimes none. They've all been eaten. But they can give birth 2-3 times a year, so if left unchecked, they can actually overpopulate an area very quickly. I've seen an area in KwaZulu-Natal, in the northeastern part of South Africa, just sort of below the Kruger National Park, and there the warthogs have gotten out of control, and on an area like this you see herds of warthog, and they've overgrazed the place completely, and now they're actually having to bring in hunters to come and control the numbers. So sometimes it's better to keep the numbers in check, because later you're going to have to take off big numbers to get the population down. Okay, folks, so we are continuing on the search, heading off into the next valley, trying to find another lugger which potentially holds some cheetah or leopard or lion. But speaking of cats and lions, let's head you on over to Taylor, who has much of the same.
Well, we've got another sleepy cat, you're quite right, Ralph, laying in a little ditch. We first thought she was a rock, but it was not a rock. I know, Rolf, you've been spotting rocks today. I do that all the time normally. But for once we managed to spot a lion. And it's just one lioness on her own from what I can tell. We're right near Hippo Pool, so I suspect that this is one of the lioness of the Mugoro Pride. And I have seen the Mugoro Pride, I think, a few times before I realized who they were. I have not seen them for a very long time. I ended up spending quite a bit of time with them. If you may remember, it's how I discovered my first jackal den, with all those very cute pups. You may remember that. That's from a while ago, a couple of months ago at least. And they led me there. In fact, there were 3 lionesses. But perhaps you can help me. I've now forgotten how many lions are supposed to be in the Mugoro Pride. So please can you hashtag Safari Live with the answer. Or perhaps you can just type away on the YouTube chat. Someone will be watching. I think Alice is going to be watching, looking for the answers to that. So that's exciting. So we know now on my route home, we could potentially have lots of lion sightings, maybe lots of action. We know they like to sleep during the heat of the day, but these areas at both groups of lions that we've seen this afternoon are in warthog hotspots. So if one of them come round and disturb these lions, well, then they could wake up. Now, Scarlett, you're wondering who is better at hunting, the boys or the girls? I suppose it depends. The lioness are typically in prides, so there's normally more of them. So you would think that they would be the better hunters. Males also live in coalitions. Males are very good hunters. You won't believe it, actually, how they can just take on and bring buffalo down all by themselves. So I'm going to go with the girls, though. I think I'm going to give it to the girls this time just because they have proper coordinated hunts. They've spent years and years building up the bond between one another, and I think it would make sense that they're the more successful ones. But again, I've seen so many males going in on their own, in their coalitions, taking down many, many animals. You know, a coalition of lions like the Bilashaka boys, who, if I'm not mistaken, I think all come from the same pride. They're all almost look identical, and they look of similar age. They might have a very good chance because they've been living together for a very, very long time, so that bond is really strong, like you would with a lioness. But they don't reassure that bond. They don't spend a lot of time grooming one another like the girls do. So I'm going to put my money on the lionesses for this one. Judy, you're wondering if lionesses ever abandoned their pride, and why would they? You know, I've seen it before in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, where, again, it's a private game reserve that I worked on there, so it's fenced in, not a massive open system like we have in the Sabi Sand, the Great Kruger, or we have here in the Mara Triangle, the Masai Mara National Reserve. Remember, there's no fences on any of the borders. Tanzania is not too far away. So, you know, it was quite interesting. It was a young lioness. It was her and her brother. And they must have been about 18, 19 months old, and they just decided that they'd had enough of their pride, and they actually separated together, and they ended up relocating those 2 lions together as well to another game reserve. So it's a tough one. It really is a tough one, of course. I keep hearing a tropical bobo, so in the back of my mind I'm trying to find that for you as well while I watch this lion sleep. And then why would they? If prides get too big, sometimes there's too much competition around feeding. Imagine in an area where there isn't a lot of food around and you're scrapping over a warthog every 2nd or 3rd day. That would be enough to send you off on your way to try and survive on your own, to ensure that you're actually going to get a meal. Look what happened with the Angamas the other day. Those lionesses didn't even get a mouthful. It was all those gutsy cubs that were dying to get that warthog, which they did. They gobbled it all up. They all had big round bellies. So that would be a reason. Maybe there's some form of conflict amongst the pride. Again, we don't really understand all the dynamics. We can't speak their language, so we can only sort of guess and from experience try and understand what certain things mean. So yes, maybe something like that happens. They could also leave. But I think food would be a big one, and the pride's just getting too big. I think that would be the main thing that would send them on their way. But quite exciting. But we're edging closer and closer towards the Mara River. Let's carry on from here because she's sleeping. She's quite far off the road. I can't off-road there, unfortunately. Wait, Megan, did you say Mugoro or Mpocho? Mapojos. Because that's a completely different pride. Well, not even a pride, a coalition that's not even alive anymore in the Sabi Sand. Okay, so no responses just yet with how many are in the Mugoro pride. Look at all these Egyptian geese. Hello, Jippos. How are you guys doing? There's so many of them. It's Egyptian goose hotspot. And if Fuzzman Sparkles, if you're watching, this is the area I was telling you about where I have seen Goliath herons. However, there's no Goliath heron out here today, which is a pity, but we'll keep checking. Now, I've been seeing a lot of Egyptian goose at the moment with goslings, so I don't know if these are... They all look like they've got their adult plumage to me. They don't look like they're slightly smaller, so I'm going to go ahead and say that these are all adults here. Just grazing. It's a common water source. It's a nice spot, in fact. Green grass, and then a little bit of water to keep yourself cool. But this lugger is drying up, and I find that there's a lot of competition here. From the hyenas wanting to wallow, you've of course got the terrapins, you might find a few crustaceans, the birds, from the egrets to the herons to the Egyptian geese to the black-winged stilts, they're all going to want to be living in this area. So as it dries up, there's going to be more and more conflict because the food is also going to start disappearing. But luckily for them, there is no shortage of water in the Mara at the moment, and they can move on and go elsewhere. I don't know how we don't see more birds getting snapped up by crocodiles. To me, that honestly amazes me. Because if I was a crocodile, I think I'd just play a game all the time and try and sneak up to all the birds and then hopefully catch one. That's what I would do for dinner. But let's carry on. Let's see what else we can find along the way. I am just going to turn my head all the way down here, though, to see if I can see that heron. He likes, I don't know if it's a male or female, but there is one that likes it up there, but not today, I'm afraid. But we'll keep searching for that Goliath heron. Now, I'm going to send you across the Mara River to Ralph and see what his, I think she's got some lions.
Well, you would have guessed it. Yes, we have found some more lions, and these look very comfortable, not only lying down, but also in each other's presence. These look slightly older than that younger male that we just found before them, but these two look like they are best of friends and happily snoozing off together. Wonderful. One was almost entirely his head upside down, showing his teeth as his lips fell away from his mouth. He was so much upside down, but beautiful sight to see their big noses. And you wouldn't think from that picture there that they could be such ferocious animals. They look quite soft and cuddly, don't they? Very serene. I almost feel like going off to sleep myself. Now, Scarlett, you're wondering what is a lion's biggest threat? Scarlett, unfortunately, the biggest threat to lions are humans, because they are very big animals and they are apex predators, and so they very quickly come into conflict with man or humans, and so that is the biggest threat to lions. But out in the wild, I would say the biggest threat to them is probably other lions, as these males might find as they move around and get caught in other males' territories, and they could find themselves on the run trying to survive from the other males killing them. And the other one is obviously the hyenas, which is very well documented, and they do have quite a love-hate relationship, the lions and hyenas. And it's normally fighting for resources, but all predators don't really tolerate each other. So if they have a chance, they will kill, even down to little cubs and pups, whether it's wild dog, leopard, cheetah, lion. If they have a chance to kill one of the other ones, they will. And it's all down to competition for food, but I don't think that these two are competing in any way whatsoever, either with themselves or anybody else at the moment. Now, Tiva, you're wondering, is it true that lions distaste the taste of humans? Well, I'm not quite sure, because it's difficult to tell because you've never been able to taste the way that a lion tastes and see what it prefers. But what I can say is, from a calculated guess, if you eat something in particular, or you have a range of things that you eat, and if somebody offers you something completely different, it does normally take a little bit of getting used to. And so with lions, I don't believe that humans are their natural food. It's the same with sharks in the ocean. I think if presented enough, they will start to get a taste for it. But I don't think that it is a particular distaste for humans. I think it's just that they're not quite usual in eating humans. So they don't really have a particular hunger to eat humans. But if there is an easy target, especially for a sick or an old lion, they will definitely take a chance there. And that's where people also present themselves in the situations, such as on the northern part of the Kruger National Park, where it borders on Zimbabwe and Mozambique. Those people cross the border of the Limpopo River, and they walk through lion territory, and very often at night, to get to small towns in South Africa where they can buy their supplies and return back to their country because of the strife that is going on in their particular countries. And so they're presenting themselves to lions as an easy meal, and so there is the chance that they can get eaten, and they do. Not on a regular basis, but it is known that some of those lions have also now gained a taste for humans because they're presenting themselves on a regular basis and becoming an easy meal too. So it's always down to what's available. It's similar with the sharks. If you also start letting wild animals associate humans with food, that's when you get a big problem. With the sharks, you have a lot of the shark cage diving where people are feeding the sharks, and so they start to link people with food. And once those boats drive away, while those sharks are still looking for food. It's very similar with animals in the bush as well, baboons, with monkeys, with jackals, with all of those. You start to let them associate people and food, they become dangerous. So that's why you should never feed wild animals, and it does then keep our safety net, because as soon as animals aren't scared of us anymore, they are dangerous to us, and so we don't want to be letting any, however big or small, from a jackal to a lion, associate people with food. So we've been going from one lion sleeping male to another, and I think maybe we're going to continue on a little bit and see if we can find one that isn't flat on his back. But while we do that, let's send you on over to Taylor, who's got one of my favorite birds of the bush.
It's shouting very loudly, the helmeted guinea fowl, and something has made it fly into that tree. It was on the ground, and then I just heard this and saw it flying out of the long grass and into the top of that tree. Now I'm trying to work out what on earth would have chased it up. Was there a big snake on the ground? Was there an eagle soaring about? Although then I would imagine it would probably run to a small shrub or into a big tuft of grass and hide low. Or is there a leopard or a lion walking around here? Could be for a crocodile too. Might be a crocodile just sitting out there. We're quite close to the Mara River, but I'm not really sure what has frightened this bird up in the tree. Let's see, somebody else has just landed up to it. Looks like, I don't even know what that is. But it's a little sparrow or something. It's just sitting above next to the guinea fowl. It's a bit too far away. I almost picked my binoculars up to look at my monitor to get a closer look. I can't really see what that is, I'm afraid. It's sitting in the shade and I've got a glare on my screen. It looks very sparrow-like. Anyways, guinea fowl now seems to be calming down a little bit, and that other little bird seem to be frightened one little bit. But we know guinea fowl, though. They like to play tricks on us. They like to pretend that there's things around. I can't tell you how many times. Or or Ali or Tristan or any of us have spent at Djuma trying to figure out what has frightened a guinea fowl. It is always one of the most intriguing things to try and figure that out. So now it's calmed down, so I don't think that something has necessarily worried it. Maybe it just gave itself a fright and decided to fly up into the tree. It all is a bit calm now. Sounds like there are a couple of testiculars and things yakking about, but that's quite normal. Ah, Carol, you said you didn't know that guinea fowl could fly. Yeah, they can, just like a chicken. So they don't spend much time flying, but they typically do roost up in trees. It's better to roost up there than down on the ground. You see, it's still alarming, and it's looking to the right. So there's something between that tree and the Mara River. I don't know what has startled it, though. But they're fairly good flyers. My favorite thing to do, and one thing that I do miss about the Sabi sand, is sitting at Chitwa Dam as the sun is setting and watching the big flocks of guinea fowl gather around to have a drink of water, and then they all fly up and roost in those dead knobthorns and leadwoods that are all around Chitwa Dam. So that's quite a cool sight. So you'll have to ask either James, Steve, Noel, Tristan, when they're on drive, if they can perhaps sit there until sunset and you can watch that happen. You can watch lots of them fly up into the trees. It's quite beautiful, in fact, because you get them silhouetted, which is also very special. But all is calm. I wonder if there's maybe not more lions or something around here. But I don't really know. I can sit here and guess all day long, and I might not be able to tell you what's going on. Let me have one more look with the binoculars. I didn't see anything moving in those bushes and the tall grass. I didn't hear any splashes either going into the Mara River. I don't know what has startled them. Okay, well, we can carry on. Let's carry on. Let's see. Go back around and see what we can find. What I'm going to do is going to head down to one of my favorite points. Actually, let's just have a quick squiz here. Could be anything. I was sitting quite far away. I can't see anything, even in the open gaps. Guinea fowl, stop teasing us. Rude. Very rude. Tweety Kid, you're wondering if the guinea fowl are related to quail. I wouldn't imagine a quail. And the reason why I say this is because quail are typically much smaller than the size of a guinea fowl. So no, so guinea fowl have got their own family. We've just seen the helmeted, and then you also get the crested guinea fowl. I don't know if the vulturine, yeah, of course, yes. And then the vulturine guinea fowl is another species, which I have not seen out in the wild yet. I've seen it in bird sanctuaries. So no, not related to quails, unfortunately. But a lot of these ground-dwelling birds, from the spurfowls to the franklins, they behave fairly similar. Right, what have we got next? I have no idea what we've got next. We're going to keep searching. Okay, we're going to keep searching for some wonderful animals, perhaps along the Mara River. And of course, while we do that, let's go and see how Rolf's journey is going across the river.
Thank you, Taylor. And well, his journey's going great, and that's how it is sometimes. It's not all about the destination, is it? It's about the journey. So we're on our way to try and find some of the famous spotted cats of the area. But on the way, we're spotting lots of warthog and topi, as you can see there, and there's lots of flies about as well as they buzz in front of the camera. And as we go across, there's also some lovely zebra there as well, and they're always one of my favorite, especially for photography, because they do make such wonderful photos. They're very photogenic, and it must have a lot to do with the contrast in color, I think. And there we go, lovely sight that. Always looking very fat are zebra because of their bloated bellies and with the hindgut fermentation process that's going on. bulk grazing, so they're not very choosy as to what they feed on. And I've been finding lots of dung next to my tent from zebra. And the other morning when I had my little episode of being woken up by my very unintelligent smartphone, and I was up at 2 in the morning, I nearly bumped into a zebra who was grazing next to my tent as I made my way to the shower, and that was at 2 in the morning. So they do come through our camp, and there has also been a couple of hippos, and the hyenas are also starting to move in, and that very often happens when you have camps, especially with food waste. And so we do need to be careful. We always put the food into the food waste bins away at night. I know we have it at Djuma as well. There's always a problem with hyenas, with their very strong nose. You need to put your food away, and like I said yesterday, there is the odd shoe that disappears as well if people leave them out. Alright, so let's continue along our way. Let's see what else we can find. See, just in front of us here, you're seeing a lot of bones, the result of the lions at work, I think, and also the odd cheetah out on these plains. It could be either or, but when it's the big bones that we see there, it's probably zebra or buffalo, wildebeest, most likely lions. Now, Darla, you're wondering how long it takes to become a guide. Well, things have changed slightly. Back when I was just starting out, or when I was a young warthog, we had to do training for 3 years. And so we did 2 years of studying, and in the 3rd year you went and did practical experience, and it wasn't actually really a guide role on its own. We had rangers or conservation managers that did guiding as well. So you would walk the fence line, you would do anti-poaching, you would do animal management, game counts, disease management, and as one of your roles you would also guide guests, and then they would identify the guides out of the ranges. Now look at this bird of prey here. It did look like it is a kestrel or a hobby, and he was after something there. He's just moved off now. Didn't have enough time to see exactly which one. They are really quick, and there's lots of these harriers and kestrels just flying above the grasslands here. So I do like to just try and stop every now and then, but it's quite windy, so they hover a little bit, and if you get close to them and they notice you there, they just fly off very quickly with the wind. So to answer your question about how long it takes to become a guide, nowadays you need to do a minimum of a 6-week course at one of these training institutions, which are normally in the bush, in South Africa I'm talking about. And after that, then you do need to get a bit more experiential training. So I'd say within about 6 months you could probably be guiding guests of your own. It all depends on the specific lodge that you may get your experiential training from. But it's normally within a year you can be sort of starting to become a semi-professional guide, and after 2 years you can be fully professional. So that's how it is now. It's changed slightly, where we used to train in the management of game reserves and then branch off a little bit into guiding. And that's the way that I went. I went into the overlanding guiding in Namibia. I got offered a job there, and so I was driving those big trucks with 20 people in the back, with all the camping equipment, with all the food. So we used to do everything from doing all the shopping and preparing all the camping gear, the tents, the mattresses, all the cooking equipment, the pots and all the cutlery and crockery, and we used to have to pack all of that. And then we got our budget and we got our itinerary. Then we would drive our truck to the airport, pick up our guests, and off we'd go for a 2-week adventure. And when I started, you know, I often laugh when when some of the guides say they've been working for 3 weeks with no break. Well, I can tell you, we used to work for 9 months on and then 3 months off, and we only used to have 1 day in between tours, and when we had that 1 day, it was obviously to refuel, to restock, and to clean everything, and then off we would go again. So things have changed a little bit, where it's a lot more comfortable for the guides. It's both a good and a bad thing. It does help that guides don't get burnt out as quickly as we did at that time, but it has made them a little bit softer, I must say. Okay folks, so we're coming down to a very big lager here, and I think we might be able to spot some of our cats that we've been searching for. But while we head on down and try to see if there's any around, let's head on over to Taylor, who's got one of those front gut fermenters.
Ralph, good luck on your adventure across the river. I think you and Craig are going to have a lot of fun. But we've arrived at my favorite pod of hippos. I always come to visit them, or when I get a chance. And it's also the same area that the Paradise Pride of Lions likes to lay around, but they don't seem to be about today. Hippos, have you had a good day lounging in the sun, resting? Yep. They're all paying attention now. They're all snorting at me. They don't seem particularly happy with my presence, but I'm all the way up on the riverbank, and I've been here many times before when they're calm. So I think that they just need to have a little time out, a little break, and just relax. It is Monday after all, and I know Mondays are not necessarily good days, so we'll give them that then. Some of them rolling all around now. So my river's definitely filled up a little bit. There's one to the right, looks like it's going to open its mouth. No, it's going to open its mouth underwater. So that's quite nice, because the last time I came through here, they were kind of just paddling on rocks. There wasn't very much around in terms of water, so they couldn't do full roll rounds. I mean, I love it when a hippo rolls underwater and shows its feet. It's one of the funnier things, and it gives us a chance to have a very quick look at the underside of their feet, which is something that we don't often get to see. So if they do that at any time, try and be as quick as you can and take a screenshot. The hippo synchronized swimming. That's what we like to call it out here. But they're looking a little bit restless. They've obviously, like I said, been sunning themselves on the bank, just like the hippos that we saw this morning on the sunrise safari, when they were those little ones. We saw lots of little hippos, and they'd all gone to sleep. They'd had a play. I'm sure these hippos would have been doing a similar thing, although we don't often see them out here sunning themselves on the bank. They just rest up and they use the rocks quite a bit. The other area we were in was a little bit rocky, but it was a nice little sand bank, I think, that they were laying on. But these guys are now starting to wake up, and eventually, once the sun goes down, they all start to leave the water. And I've told you many stories about, you won't actually believe how many hippos are out here until you drive around at night and you see all of them. They are everywhere, just as common as the impala. Although impala are not as common out here as they are in the Sabi sand. They are there. But they keep disappearing under the water. Come on, I know somebody wants to open their mouth for us. I thought they were going to maybe do it as a threat display when I first arrived, because they started snorting at me. So I thought, okay, they'll eventually settle down. But that doesn't seem to be the case right now, at least. But it could change. It could change at any moment. There's some little ones. No tiny tots here, though. I can't see any little hippo calves, unfortunately. They could be hidden away. Now, Brent, you're wondering if hippos ever come out of the water to eat for a little while during the day. Most certainly, and especially with this cool weather that we're experiencing at the moment and this low-laying cloud, most certainly. It's not uncommon at all to see them. You normally see them out of the water during the early hours of the morning. But, oh, are they singing? Not really. One sort of went, or whatever sound a hippo makes. That wasn't a very good attempt. Sorry, my throat's very scratchy today. It's limiting me to my animal sounds. That's maybe a good thing. So no, it isn't uncommon. Did you hear that? Like different types of trumpets. Very cool. So sorry, Brent, the answer to that whole question is yes. And out here, it's actually not uncommon to see them grazing during the day. And the reason for that is because there's lots of nice green grass quite close by. Whereas in the Sabi sand, most of the time hippos actually have to leave their pool of water, whether it be a river or a dam or a wallow, to find suitable grazing. So then that's why they'll use the cover of darkness when it's nice and cool, and they're actually quite vulnerable, hippos, when they're out on land. So they'll typically do it then. But in Zambia as well, there are lots of little islands on the Great Zambezi River, and the hippos would be in and amongst there feeding on the reeds, feeding on all the lovely lush grass all day long. So they do have a way to try and combat their very sensitive skin. Most of you know, and it's something that we talk about quite often, but we've always got new viewers jumping on board that are eager to learn. And for those young guides out there, it's a word that takes a little while getting used to. Hipposudoric acid, or blood sweat. And that's what they secrete. It's quite an oily substance, and it has an antiseptic and a mild sunblock in it too. I wonder what the equivalent of SPF it would be. It'd be quite interesting to know. These are full of joy. There's one on the right. You can just see him bobbing like a boy at the moment. Come on, stop teasing us. Do a full roll around. It would be nice to see that. It always makes me chuckle. We got to see it lots at Chitwa Dam. It was one of my favorite things, was spending the afternoons down on the dam. Now they're settling down again. I may have stirred them, because now they're completely relaxed with me and they're just acting like hippos. Not really doing much at all. But we should start to see them coming out of the water soon. So Brent, keep watching, and maybe by the end of the sunset safari we'll be lucky to have one on its way out for a grazing session. But it's nice also to see a little section across the river. This area was looking very, very dry, but it looks like it's greened up quite nicely. The last time I came down here it was yellow, bright yellow, which is not great. Let's go up a little bit further. I see some impala ahead. Let's see what they're up to. Thanks, hippos. Now, as we bumble towards the impala, Judy, you're wondering if you ever find hippos in salt water. Most certainly you do. Of course you do. Can you imagine when the settlers were arriving on the southeast coast of South Africa, and they saw these creatures actually in the waves, and they called them the sea cows, the siakwi. So yes, hippos can be found in salt water. However, I don't know if there's many areas left where you can find them. Isn't there somewhere, is it Colombia, where there's hippos where they aren't supposed to be? I'm misquoting. Where's my friend Ali when we need her to tell us these stories? So yeah, here's the impala that I was telling you about. Let me quickly just position us a little bit off the road, because it's quite a busy section of the road. There we go. So yeah, they do, but I have yet to see a hippo in salt water. I don't think I've ever seen one. Oh no, I talk absolute nonsense. You know where I have seen a hippo? One broke out of the reserve and then was in the Bushman's River. And the Bushman's River is a tidal river. It's the second longest tidal river in South Africa, and then it was there. So I have seen hippo in salt water before, to answer your question. Just not in the ocean though. But that river, we were probably, we must be about 25, 30 kilometers up from the mouth. So it had quite a long way to go before we get down to the ocean, but still pretty cool. So here the impala just grazing away. There's often herds along this stretch. Remember, impala like to not just eat grass, but they have quite a varied diet from grass, and particularly the small green shoots is their favorite. They'll eat leaves, they'll eat fruit. So by living on the banks of the Mara River, they have access to all those different food types. So when the grass gets a bit brown and not so tasty, then they can start feeding on the leaves, and they will also nibble on all the different types of fruit that we see around here, which is quite nice. But it's beautiful, but still looking a little bit dry. You can see into the distance just a tinge of yellow. It does look better though, but it's going to need a lot more rain in order to change that shade of yellow to a brighter green like we're seeing where the impala are. And we're not actually seeing too many animals on the other side of the bank. Oh, the other side of the banks of the Mara River, in fact. They all seem to be here. Now, Zeke, you've asked a question with regards to how athletic impala are and how high can they jump. Height-wise, I'm just trying to think when they bound about. It's pretty high. It's a couple of meters, maybe 2.5 meters high, maybe even a little bit higher than that. However, jumping high is not their strength. Jumping a long length is what they're really good at. At a full sprint, an impala can leap a length of 10 meters. So what's that? 30 feet? Pretty impressive. I think it's about 30 feet or so, give or take a little bit. Sorry, my calculations are terrible. I was never very good at maths. So they're amazing. The long distance jumping champions. Things like kudu and eland can actually jump exceptionally high, well over 3 meters from a standstill. I'm just say that under my breath. I'm so envious. They're greatest high jumpers ever. They could pole vault without the pole, which is pretty amazing. And again, it's a defense mechanism. And a couple of Thompson's are also moving through the impala, so it is a defense mechanism. If they need to try and evade predators by leaping high, leaping long lengths, could help them avoid being captured. The Lego kid, you're wondering where are impala even from? From my understanding and from all the books, they have been found all over Africa. They're one of the most common antelope species out there, and are very, very important to the ecosystem. So they're found in a lot of places. I'm trying to think where you wouldn't find impala. I don't know if I have a map. No, not this mammals book. Kind of like the bird books, how we can sort of see where they occur. The mammals books have a similar map on their location. But maybe one of you can pull one up from the interweb for me and you can have a quick look. I'm not sure where the impala don't occur. They're very tolerant of cold weather, hot weather, droughts, floods. They're resilient creatures. So in Africa, I wonder. You've stumped me there, but we can have a little look. We can do homework. We can help me now. We can have a look, pull the map up. Just sadly, my books that I have are a little bit on the limited side. Like I said, I'm so sad that I did not bring more books up. I would have happily substituted pairs of shoes and clothing for more books. Next time, though. Next time I come up, I'll be more prepared. This was just a practice run. And I think I've got it down to a T now. And I'll be much better next time. Let's see what else we can find along the way. Who knows what we may bump into along this road. Home of the Paradise Pride and the Musketeers. Haven't seen them for ages, though. I have no idea where they've disappeared and how they disappear like this all the time. They just come and go. But again, they go across the river, they come back. They go across the river, they come back. So they might just be that side, or they could just be up ahead somewhere. But we'll keep searching. I'm glad we got to see our hippos. Who have we got here? Adrian, I'm going to put you on the spot. Who's flying? You can see it, it's silhouetted. Is it a black-shouldered kite or is it a pallid harrier? Looks like a pallid harrier. Have quite a few little bars under the tail. Yep, and you see that white patch on the rump? That is the signature of a harrier. I love the way they hunt. One day I'm going to get them catching a rodent out of the grass. They all use different techniques. Some birds perch themselves. These guys like to fly and flush prey out. They fly quite low down to the ground. What amazing, amazing birds. But just about to disappear out of frame. Very cool. Well done, Adrian. Amazing. Nicely done. That was impressive. I feel bad throwing all our wonderful cameramen under the bus like that. What's that over there? There it goes. That's probably the worst thing that we do. And you're like, what is it? Oh, it was a dragonfly. Or something ridiculous, 30 meters away. So, it's Manu's favorite thing. Challenge every time we do it. We'll just be driving, carrying on, and then we don't even have to be live. And then I'll go, what's that? And then Manu tries to get it every single time. He's pretty good. But Adrian, that was impressive. That was very fast. I have to reiterate, everybody, this is Adrian's first proper time filming wildlife 24/7. Doing a very, very good job. That was like a level 3 shot and he pulled it off. I'm super impressed. It's always nice though. So Adrian, are you happy about doing filming wildlife? Is it learning every day? And that's always good. You know, I always like to say, if you're not, I get bored if I'm not learning something new every single day. And I suppose it's also a challenge, because you can tell people what you want them to do. You can't tell the animals what you want them to do. They don't have a script, says Adrian. 100%. Hit the nail on the head. Right, we are these lions. I know those are not lions up there. I know those are Thompson's gazelle. Matt, you've asked a hilarious question. You're wondering if there's any difference between weekdays and weekends here in the bush. No, not even. The day of the week doesn't even mean the day of the week, the date, the time. We just have set times that we actually have to work. If you call this work. Hello, Buffalo. I'm just going to go down towards the river and see what's happening here. Sometimes the lions are up on that little embankment. So yeah, no, days just fly by. They mix into one another. Sometimes you have to be reminded that it's your birthday, or that it's Christmas, Easter, all these things. Often you have to be reminded. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. Just if you want days to go quickly, come to the bush. They fly by. I can't believe that I don't even know what the day is, but we're quite far into January already, which is scary. When everyone starts talking about migration, and I'm like, only in a few months' time, you're just like, what? Where did it go? Hello, Kobe, my young friend of only 15 years. You're wondering, when am I coming back to Djuma? Never. No, I'm just joking. Of course, coming back to Djuma. I will be back on the 1st of March. I leave here after TV. We've got more TV shows coming up in February. So after television is finished, then I should be flying home to South Africa, where I'll be going to my hometown, Port Elizabeth. I have not visited PEZ for a very long time. It's what us Eastern Capers call Port Elizabeth, PEZ, Ibai. There's many different names for it, and Ibai means the bay. So yeah, so I'm going home, and then I get to see my older brother and his girlfriend, and go on a family holiday to the Kruger as well, sort of to the Kruger, around that area, which we haven't done for years as a family, which is quite nice. Oh my goodness, there's nothing here. It's empty. There's a couple of crocodiles, but we won't stay here for long. They're just facing the other way even. We can't even look at their nice pearly whites, so we shall go somewhere else. We'll try the next one, and I think we'll get lucky there. So yes, Kobe, I will see you in Djuma soon, and I cannot wait to do a bushwalk. Megan, please say that first part again. I just have to hear it again. Let me turn the radio up even. Please, can you elaborate a little bit more? I'm going to tell you now, everybody. How? I need information. Right, everybody. Guess what? Ralph is stuck. This is like turned into a game now. It's actually really funny. Who's it going to be next? Anyway, Ralph is not stuck in mud though. I'm McMuddy. That's my name. Ralph seems to be stuck in a hole, so I wonder if he's driven over a warthog burrow or an aardvark burrow and it's collapsed, because that happens quite often, quite frequently in fact, that could happen. So Ralph and Craig, I'm sure, are going to use a combination of high lift jacks and rocks. The rocks seem to be few and far between in the mire when you need them. Now there's plenty of rocks, but I'll watch, and we'll never get stuck here ever. But at least they have their high lift jack. You won't believe how you can use that tool to get you out of certain situations. I unfortunately can't go and help Ralph though, because he's all the way on the other side of the reserve. But we can always find somebody to help him. Hopefully he's got some cell phone reception, and then perhaps we can send him some numbers of friends to give him a hand. Otherwise he can just wave. Now Juliet, as we drive along the edges of the Mara River looking for wonderful creatures, you're wondering if I've ever worked in captive animal conservation, and if I haven't, would I ever? I haven't. I don't know if I would. I mean, we very informally used to rescue animals down in the Eastern Cape and rehabilitate them and then send them off on their way. But that again, that was just very informal. I've told you lots of different stories of all the animals we've saved, or we've tried at least. No, I don't know. You know what? I don't. It's really nice, obviously, to help all the animals. However, I think that I'm very lucky in the position that I am in at the moment. I get to view the animals in the wild where they should be, and I think the presenters at Wildwood have a very important role of education throughout the entire world on animals and wildlife. So for me, no, working with captive animals or animals that are in captivity doesn't appeal to me at all. I'd prefer to be doing this. But again, it's just my opinion. That's not to say that I'm a horrible person. I don't want to help any of the animals. But I like to say to people that I've never, that I've only seen lions, in the wild or leopards in the wild, rather than going, oh, I had to go and feed the leopards today. No, that just doesn't appeal to me. But again, there are lots of people who it does appeal to, and they can quite happily have those jobs. I'll be here to entertain you. I always wanted to be a vet. That was my ultimate dream. I would have loved to have done that. It would have been quite cool. So I'm just checking for tracks. No, those look like hippo tracks. And where was I going with this? And then I always think, being a wildlife vet would be amazing. A couple of my friends are wildlife vets, and the things that they get to do up close and personal, going in, treating wild dogs for rabies or whatever, inoculating them against it or whatever it may be, jarting elephants and taking off old tracking collars from projects for 15 years ago. Pretty spectacular, the things that they get to do. But they also don't have the perks that I have with my job. So I suppose it's a much of a muchness, isn't it? We choose the path we want to go. What are we going to do? There's another little lookout point over here. So I think the Djuma team shall be joining us in a little bit. I think there's some gremlins attacking them, however. So I'm sure they'll be out with their sticks beating them. Beating of gremlins is allowed. Poke our nose just off the edge of this viewpoint. Maybe we get lucky. Be careful, don't get stuck in that. That would be terrible. Wait. Hippos. Hello, hippos. It's my friends again. Look at them. Hi, guys. Again, not so chuffed to see me. I don't know how I've offended all the hippopotamus in the Mara River today, but I'm very sorry. Because every time I drive up to the river's edge, and it's not like we're particularly close to them. I must be about 40, 50 meters away from them. And quite high up. Anyways, we'll figure it out. We'll see if they settle down, otherwise we might let them do their thing. Now, Sinak, you're wondering if I've ever seen hippos attacking other animals at the water's edge. You often see hippos showing how... What is that? There's a mongoose. Oh, they're banded mongoose. Oh, I got so excited. Sorry. I got distracted on that bank, just under those trees. Top left corner. Yeah, that shrub. Bottom, go to your right-hand side now. Right. In there, underneath. If you zoom right in, you're looking at a banded mongoose. I saw that and I got excited. I thought it was another mongoose species, but it's not. It's just a family of banded mongoose over there. I got very excited. Oh, they're living on that termite mound to the left, where you were going initially. Other left. Keep going. There we go. You can see them all climbing around up on top there. Yeah, that's where they're living. Oh, there's one having a suntan. Oh, those little babies. Those are little babies. Look at them. And I'm so sorry that it's so far away. It's on the other side of the river. Those are the tiniest little banded mongoose I have ever seen in my life. Look how small they are. Oh, wow. Do you know what? I genuinely thought that was dung or something along those lines, because it was so small. And I wasn't looking with my binoculars, and I thought, oh, that's how I'm going to tell you all that I know that they're living in here, is because I can see fresh dung. That dung's moving now, and it's turned out to be little banded mongoose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 or 6 of them. Very cool. That's the first time for me. Have had a lot of firsts here in the Mara. Oh, and there's one that's just suntanning, of course. Looks like it's on babysitter duty, doing 2 things at once: watching the kids and then also just relaxing. That's so cool. Now I wonder if it's the same. I don't know much about the banded mongoose, like I know about the dwarf mongoose, but I wonder if it's the same similar thing where it's only just the one pair that's breeding. But I don't know. I'll have to do research about these beautiful creatures. Now we know where they are, though. Another home with little babies to come and visit when we pop around the side of the river. How exciting is that? It doesn't seem like a massive family. I haven't seen too many of the adults either. I've maybe seen 4 or 5 adults moving around here. And I believe you're all going, ooh, it's so cute. Thank you, Taylor. It's a pleasure. I didn't know they were here. Just by luck, we managed to see them. Oh, and typical. You know, as we are watching these beautiful creatures, I've obviously got a full view here. One of the hippos opened its mouth and yawned for us, which is so typical, considering we've been talking about it the entire time. Right. Let's see. I don't know what's going on here. It actually looks like there might be a little bit of an argument happening. There's some posturing of these hippos, and for once not necessarily towards me. Let's see. I'm going to keep going underwater, and there's lots of splashing. Here we go. I wonder if it's being chased. I think that must be a younger male. I'm just watching and observing what's going on. So I think what's happening there is, I think the ones in the middle, I think we've got a male and a female here. And I'm just assuming. It's so hard to tell when they're in the water like this. And maybe it's a young male that's being a bit cheeky. The one was definitely unhappy, and the one on the left definitely protecting the other. Let's see if it happens again. Edging closer. Oh, apparently Ralph is very much stuck in the mud, not a mound. I'm just having a look while you look here. I've got told to check. No. I was, yes. Look, I'll show you that in a minute. I'm sorry, I'm going to show you a picture in a little bit. Once these hippos settle down here, I just got very distracted. You are going to love it. Going to absolutely love it. Ralph is the marshmallow queen, that's all I'm saying. Well done, Ralph. You've managed to get stuck. I've been here for a few months at least, and it took me a while. But this is just too great. And I know you guys we're all just teasing one another, just by the way. If we're too nice to one another, we probably don't like each other. How we show love is that we tease one another like brother and sister, essentially. So there's no easy route. Let's see now, the other couple on the left is sneaking up to this one on the right. It was the other way before, where the one on the right, hippo A, B, and C. Should we just call them that? It's so hard to when animals don't have names and you're trying to talk about them. A little bit settled. But you saw how quickly those hippos move though, and you see that porpoising action that they do when they need to pick up the pace. That's why you don't want to mess with hippos on land or in the water, because even though they look like these big clumsy creatures that are quite large with very short little legs, they're fairly nimble, and they'll move a lot quicker than you and I can, so you have to be very, very careful. Mia, you're wondering what is my scariest encounter with hippo? I've had lots and lots of encounters with hippos, unfortunately. My scariest one, being charged on walk. That's not fun. Having hippos in camp was always a nightmare. But I'll tell you a funny story that didn't happen to me, but it happened to some friends of mine. Again, back in the Eastern Cape. Unfortunately, this one hippo was killed by a bull. We don't know what happened, but she was just completely torn up. We found her, and she had a young calf. and the calf must have been about 8 months old or so. Anyway, it managed to somehow find its way up to the main lodge reception area where there's a big dam and there's lots of grazing, and it just came around and it lived there. Now didn't quite know what to do, and it made sort of friends with all the vehicles. It would just come walk around where we parked the cars. And one night these guys were coming back from their vehicles, heading back to their rooms anyways, and this little hippo chased them around the car park quite a bit. So that must have been quite terrifying, not knowing in the dark what's running towards you and then realizing it's this hippo calf that means business. So even at a young age they can be quite cheeky. But hippos and buffalo are the animals that I steer clear of. I've been charged by hippos in Zambia in the boats. That was pretty terrifying. Seeing a wake, I often describe to you the wake that these animals create, and there's a very good video that was floating around the interweb at one point. I think it was on the Zambezi, in fact, somewhere, or maybe in Botswana. It could have been in the Delta. Maybe it was the Delta. But essentially we use a similar type of aluminium speedboats, and this fella is driving his boat with his guests, and the next minute there's this hippo that's charging them, a big bull. And all you see is that porpoising motion, and you must go and have a look at the wake that is created. So if anybody can find it, I don't know what you would have to type into YouTube to search it, but it was a very, very popular video, just to show you how quickly a hippo moves, A, and then B, the wake that they create, which is terrifying. It's like having a tsunami wave coming towards you, but you know that there's a hippo on the other side. So yes, I think this is a male and a female, and I think maybe she's coming into estrus. Perhaps he's being so protective over her, and why they've moved away from the pod just slightly is that it may have been mating. But I haven't seen any mating going on just yet. Not just yet. Eventually. And under they go again. But there's loads of hippos. Actually, if we look down to the left, you can see just all the little heads popping up every now and then. But there's also quite a nice stretch of the Mara River. Quite a rocky river. Oh, there's an impala that's just dashed out of the bushes. Let's see if it comes round. Looks very nervous. Just up and to the right from those hippos. You can just see it standing. Here we go, you've got it. Here we go, here he comes. A ram. What's given you a fright? I'd also be nervous walking through that dense pocket of vegetation. And it's good to be on your toes around here. We know that the leopards like to hang around luggers and rivers. We see the vegetation is suited to them, and the wind is also now picked up. You can see how all the grass and leaves are moving around. Plus, all the crocodiles and things that would want to eat an impala down on the river too. So it's kind of in a corridor of death at the moment. Well, good luck, impala, on your adventure. I hope that you make it safely. We're going to move away from the river. It seems as though the team in South Africa have managed to beat the gremlins, and James, of course, is leading the army. Let's go and see how his afternoon is going.
Well, we hope we've beaten the gremlins. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this end of the Sunset Safari. My name is James Hendry. That's my cheesiest smile. David is on camera with his spanky new hat, both of us wearing long sleeves on account of the fact... Show us your long sleeve, David. On account of the fact that the sun is so blindingly hot today. 38 degrees Celsius, 100 degrees Fahrenheit. That's what I said, 100 degrees Fahrenheit over here in the Sabi sands of South Africa. You may talk to us as you have been talking, no doubt, to Ralph, the Marshmallow King, and his beautiful consort Taylor, the Marshmallow Queen, there in the Masai Mara, using the hashtag Safari Live, or, of course, the chat stream on YouTube. We are sitting here with some wildebeest, or wildebeest, as they say, and I don't think we've lost any of them. I still think that there are 6. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, 6 baby wildebeestes. They are unspeakably cute little things. Quite amazing how an animal can go from being so unspeakably cute to looking so unspeakably gormless in the space of just 18 months. Really quite a miracle of nature, that. Anyway, that's the way of things. I don't know if this is the same herd that bred here last year. I seem to remember we had 11 babies last year. And I have yet to see, well, I think I've seen one, wildebeest kill with the lions in the last year or so here, so I think probably the wildebeest numbers are doing quite well up here in the Sabi Sands. They traditionally do fairly poorly for various reasons, but I think they're doing okay now. Now, we just parked right in front of the Djuma camp, in front of Vuyatela, on account of the fact that there's water here and shade, and we hoped that we'd find animals coming to us rather than us having to go to them. And so it has proved the case. I have been sat here during the course of the gremlin fiasco that we had in order to get to you today, trying desperately to take a photograph of a woodland kingfisher that was having a bath. Naturally, the world's very slowest photographer failed to get anything useful. But while we were sitting here, David managed to spot a lagavan. Is it still there? I might sneak forward, should I? And by a lagavan, I mean a monitor lizard. I don't know where the word comes from, but in South Africa, we tend to call these large lizards, oh, there he is, he's just next to the log there on the right-hand side. We call them legavans, or, if you're being stupid, lagavans. And there it is, a water lagavan, just looking for something delicious to eat in amongst the green vegetation of summer. Marvellous. Now, that lagavan, which probably extends to, say, just under 3 feet. They do get much bigger than that, but that's roughly his size. He looks like a fairly innocuous creature, and something that you could perhaps just walk up to and catch if you wanted to. If you were to catch that thing, the strength in its tail would absolutely astonish you as it swished it from side to side, and would probably do quite a lot of damage if you didn't manage to arrest its movement before it started swatting on your face. Now, very excitingly, we have way across to the western side of Djuma, about 4.5 meters away from where we are now, Stephen, and he wants to say hello.
And welcome and welcome and welcome back to the Sabi Sands. My name is Steve Falconbridge, and I'm joined once again by the wildebeest VM on camera. It is a glorious afternoon this side with temperatures of 38 degrees Celsius, and that is about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. For those of you who are out there in the cold, please feel for us in the heat of the day here. But we have good news, because on the horizon, there seems like there is a storm brewing. It is coming from the west, which is a good sign. Possibly a thunderstorm. There's definitely, because of the heat, and I kind of mentioned it this morning, that when you get a few hot days like what we've had, and today is an absolute scorcher, then quite often that evening is interrupted by a beautiful thunderstorm. Nice conditions, cools everything down. You can actually feel there's a bit of a breeze starting to pick up from the west, which is really, really welcome. Just had a little bird there, but he took off, did he, Via? Yeah. We had a woodland kingfisher, folks, but he took off. So welcome once again. We're on safari in Djuma, Kruger National Park, Private Nature Reserve Djuma. We're going to be making our way down to where Tristan last had the wild dogs this morning. There were reports of Tingana this morning, late on in the morning. He was possibly found. We moved in the area there. It is very hot. There's no sign of him anywhere to be seen. So we are going to go down towards Chitwa, see if we can see what the wild dogs are up to, and maybe the prince himself might give us a show. And while we look, we are going to basically drive on our way. And please feel free to send through your comments and questions on the hashtag Safari Live and follow the YouTube stream. Shall we hit it, V? It is time to get moving, get the wind in our faces. Yes, we are looking for animals today, folks, and they will be hiding in the shade. The temperatures, as I said, are extremely warm. So if anything is out and about, it is just for a brief moment, as it maybe scurries somewhere to have a drink. But while we continue down towards Chitwa, I believe Mr. Henry has got more than just a wildebeest, he's also got a lizard.
There is a lizard. There it is, just to the right of. He's crawling out of the... Right there. Yes, there he is. Now, I believe we had a few questions. Ooh, great activity. What's he caught? Ooh, vicious, thrashing. Kit Kat, you say, how often do lizards lay eggs? Once a year is the answer to that. And do they care for their young? Well, just like with humans, it does depend on the individual. Some of them take out education insurance immediately that their eggs hatch and put their names down at salubrious private schools. Others are neglectful and their children basically have to raise themselves. So it really does depend on the individual. Clearly I'm being deeply facetious right now. I actually don't know the answer to that. I think they do. I'm just going to read quickly for you in order to find out. Once a year in good conditions, 20 to 60 eggs, and they only hatch 4 to 6 months after being laid. Isn't that interesting? And it doesn't say whether there is parental care. I should know that. I think you'll find very limited parental care, in fact, probably none. Lynn, you want to know what it weighs. I think you'll probably find that it weighs... I cannot see what it's eating. I think it's catching dragonflies. So, Lynn, I would say it weighs in the region of, I'm going to say 3 kilograms, which is about 7 pounds. Maybe a bit more. He's not a very big one. They'll get twice that size sometimes. This is really fascinating. I've got no idea what he's trying to eat. Normally, of course, their diet consists largely of sort of frogs. Maybe it's frogs he's got in there. Crabs sometimes. We did actually find a crab here once crossing the main road. And of course we used to have Pinchy Weiner, the crab's hole, which we used to investigate quite regularly. This is the best lizard sighting I've ever had. The best part of it, of course, is that I'm not having to drive around in the blazing sunlight. I'm going to go with frogs. I think that's what he's trying to catch. Now, Sinak, lots of difficult questions being tossed my way today. Oh, he's digging now. Sinak, you want to know what kind of frogs? Well, in a frog like this, I guess you would get leopard toads, not leopard toads, eastern olive toads. You'd probably find some bubbling cassinas, snoring puddle frogs, I suspect. You might find some sand frogs. They'd probably be further away from the water than this, though. You would find some grassveld frogs, I suspect. Let me just go through the list of what other frogs we might find here. The book my mum gave me. You might find a foam nest frog as well, except I don't think you'd find them resting where... There's the recalcitrant kingfisher coming back. I don't think you'll find them lurking this close to the water. They'll normally move away, probably, and onto some taller vegetation than that. You could find a painted reed frog in theory, probably not in this particular pan. Yeah, so that's a pretty good sort of look at the kinds of things you'll get here. I wonder what he's found. He could have found a little nest. He might be trying to dig out some burrowing frog. See how he's very vigilant. He looks up every so often just to check. The atmosphere now is changing completely. This vast bank of cloud is suddenly coming up from the west. It's really quite almost eerie, but most welcome. And as it's come up, the wildebeest have moved off down towards the other waterhole, not wanting to drink here. I think probably because we're here more than for any other reason. There they are. Right, we're going to probably sit here a few more minutes while we do that. I've been asked to link to Taylor, and this is what she has. Let me describe it in one word. Blah, blah.
That was the best description I've ever heard of a yellow-billed stork. But to me it looks like a pelican, the way that it's sitting up on that bank, especially when it does that. And I was actually going to say, look everybody, it's a pelican. And then I thought, I better not be ridiculous. But that's not why we stopped here. I have to reverse in order to show you why we really stopped here. To watch me try and go into reverse. Have a look. Fuzzman Sparkles, I hope you're watching. We have your heron with some hippos. There we go. Finally. So thank you for sending on that request this morning. Even though I couldn't show you on the sunrise safari. You got both. We got the hippo opening its mouth, splashing around. And then we finally got the Goliath heron. The largest heron in the world, I tell you. Now, there's another heron, in fact, which I don't think Wild Earth has ever put on screen before. It's called a purple heron. Now, it's the only other heron that looks similar in terms of the coloration to a Goliath heron. And they are much smaller, almost half the size. But it's not really doing much justice, but its head, on both species, is almost like a rustishy purple-grey colour. Which is quite nice, which is an easy way to tell the difference, because the grey heron and the black-headed heron don't have those colours on them at all. And then they're quite stripy on their chest too. But you'll just see their colours are just slightly different. Even as you go down towards the breast of the bird too, it turns into that sort of purplish grey colour that I'm talking about. But they're tall birds. They can stand anywhere between 1.4 and about 1.5 meters, give or take a little, give or take a few centimeters. So that's a pretty tall bird. I reckon if I were to stand next to it, it would probably take me to my chest, almost my chest, which is crazy. But they are such patient hunters. You can see it's standing on 1.5 legs at the moment. It hasn't got its full weight down on, I can't tell you which leg it is, that's too confusing. It's back right leg, and, well, not back right leg, because they only have 2 pairs of legs. On its right leg, 1 pair of legs. What is wrong with me? Goodness, girl, get it together. And I think that it's hoping that with all the hippos being around, that some food might be chased towards it, from fish to small terrapins, baby crocodiles, anything along those lines. The Goliath herons will eat. They've got a massive beak. Actually, I wonder how long their beak is. I'm going to look on my bird app very quickly. I don't know if it says how long their beaks are. But, I mean, just looking at it, they're massive. Joy, you've said that this is a new bird for you. Congratulations. That is fantastic. I'm so glad we can keep adding to the bird lists.